Okay. So in the last class we looked at type classes. So today also will be the first part will be more conceptual. Then we'll write programs as we go along. Okay. Okay. So let us. So till now we have seen examples of Haskell programs. We have seen various notions. We are looking at lists, various functions on lists, how to do recursion, etc., etc. We still haven't established what you mean by computation in Haskell. What is the procedure of how does a program execute? Okay, how does a program run? In other languages, you maybe learned I don't know, whatever is your first language, C++, Java, whatever it is. You will learn the language, and then the conceptual explanation of what happens when a program runs is much more difficult. I mean, you cannot grasp it till you go further into your computer science education. When you do your beginning programming course, you are just okay. So there is some vague notion about some variables that can change, and you keep changing variables, and then most of the things revolve around that. In Haskell, the notion of computation is just like when you try to simplify a mathematical expression. Okay, it is just like simplifying expressions, as I highlight here, as I mentioned here. Yes. So some of the simplifications are built in, some of the simplifications are user defined, and basically any program that the user writes, recall that we wrote various equations in our programs. Okay, so we say factorial 0 equals something, factorial n equals something else. Okay, so basically we are telling, if ever you encounter factorial 0, you use this simplification rule. If ever you encounter factorial of some expression where the expression doesn't evaluate to 0, then use this other expression. Okay, use this other simplification. Okay, this is the kind of idea that we should have in mind as far as computation goes. So yeah, so Haskell computation just means you use definitions, either built-in or user-defined, to keep on simplifying expressions till you cannot simplify things any further. Okay, and yeah, as I say here, an answer is basically an expression that cannot be simplified any further. It so happens that these expressions are things that are printable on the screen also in most cases. Yes, like numbers or characters or whatever, or lists even. Yeah. So there are built-in simplifications, like for instance, 3 plus 5 simplifies to 8. Yeah. So these arrows you write as rewrites to or simplifies to. Okay. Basically, we're talking about simplification rules. True or false simplifies to true. That is a built-in rule. Yes. But then you, as a user, you can define your own functions. For instance, here is a function that raises a number, the first argument x, to the nth power, where n is the second argument. Okay. So power x0, raising something to the 0th power is 1. You choose it to be 1. Even 0 to the 0, you just deem it to be 1. And power x to the n is x times power xn minus 1. Is the definition clear? So let's install this definition on our code. Okay. Okay, done. Okay, you load the file, then you can check for power of, I don't know, 20 to the power 5, but I should have said integer. Let's say that the base number can be an integer, but the power can only be an int. Reload. Okay, and then you can do things like 20 to the power 5, as I said, 10 to the power 5, let's say. Okay. Yes, and 5 to the power 20. Yes, you can do all this. Okay. So what is happening here? For instance, let's take power 3 2. Okay. So the first step that happens is that look at the definition. It tries to check is power 3 2. It has to check the second argument to see if it is either 0 or n. If you look at the definition of power, the first argument has just a generic pattern x. Okay. There are no patterns that you are insisting on. Any pattern will match x. Okay. But the second argument, you are saying, oh, for 0 there is one definition, for non-zero there is another definition. That's what you are saying when you say n. So it has to evaluate the second argument, but the second argument is already evaluated to its simplest form as a number. Okay, that's fine. So it will say 3 times power. It will apply the second rule because 2 does not match 0. So it will apply the second rule. Second rule is this. Okay, x times power x n minus 1. So it will do 3 times power 3 of 2 minus 1. But now this 2 minus 1 has to be simplified to 1. Can anyone say why?
You can't compare 2 minus 1 with a number.
Yes?
You can't compare an expression with a number.
You can compare an expression with a number, but yeah, you need to evaluate it to see whether it is 0 or not. Basically, that is the point. So you have an expression 2 minus 1. You want to evaluate it and then you want to see whether it is 0 or not. Okay. It is not that you cannot compare an expression with a number, but in the process of comparing, you have to evaluate the expression. Okay. So therefore, you are evaluating the expression. And who says that 2 minus 1 equals 1? Oh, that is part of the built-in definitions that have been embedded in the Haskell language. Okay. 2 minus 1 is 1. If you don't have even this, then I mean, you cannot get very far. But now power 3 1 you have. So what is power 3 1? So now another important question. Why should it go try to do this at all? Power 3 2 minus 1. Why does it have to go and expand 2 minus 1? And then power etc. Because the star needs 2 numbers to do it. Okay. So it will reason as follows. If you have a large expression, it will look at the topmost operator or outermost operator. The outermost operator is star. To evaluate star, you need both arguments to be numbers. Okay, so the left hand side is a number. What is the right argument? Oh, that's some expression. Let us try to simplify this expression. For this expression, I need to apply the user definition, power 3 2 minus 1. But if I want to apply the user definition, I want to first check whether the second argument of power is 0 or not. So it will evaluate the expression that you have given here. Okay, and it evaluates to 1. Okay, now it has determined that 1 is not equal to 0. Therefore, it should again apply the second rule. Okay, which then makes it power 3 1 is 3 times power of 3 1 minus 1. Okay, again by the same reasoning. To do this star, you have to evaluate, to do this outermost star, you have to evaluate both sides to numbers. This side is not a number, but that's a star. Its left hand side is a number here. This 3 is a number. Oh, sorry. This 3 is a number, but this is an expression. So it has to evaluate it. But to evaluate power, it needs to check whether the second argument is 0 or not. So it then goes and evaluates the second argument by using a built-in simplification, and then it becomes 0. Okay. Once again, it sees, okay, I am at this point, I have to compute power 3 0. Power 3 0, use the first line of the definition, which says power anything 0 is 1. So it will do power 3 0 is 1. And then this power 3 0 becomes 1. 3 times 1 becomes 3. 3 times 3 becomes 9. Okay, it's exactly like you would simplify arithmetic expressions. Okay, except that instead of just some arithmetic operations and built-in rules, you have other operations like Boolean operations, etc. And you also have user-defined rules. Okay, is this process clear? Anybody has any question on this? Yes. Okay. So I'll move on. So please ask me if there are any questions, because I have hidden all the. I mean, as such, I cannot see any faces. I can only see so many, and I have also hidden all the control windows so that I can see my screen, the slides properly. So if you have any reaction, please speak up and ask me. Any questions or queries? Okay. Fine. Good. So now let's consider this expression. 8 plus 3 times 5 minus 3. Okay. I claim that there are two ways of computing. Can somebody tell what are the two ways? This is nothing
First we
that has
compute.
to be done even in other, even if you write an expression 8 plus 3 times 5 minus 3 using pen and paper, you will try to simplify it in two different methods. Can you tell me?
First we calculate 8 plus 3 and then 5 minus 3.
And then
Or
do,
if
or you calculate 8 plus 3, or you calculate 5 minus 3 first and then 8 plus 3. Okay?
yes, sir.
Yeah, in the first method, you will have 11 times 5 minus 3, 11 times 2, 22. Or you will have 8 plus 3 times 2, which is 11 times 2, which is 20. Okay. Okay, just like that, there are two ways of computing power 5 plus 2, 4 minus 4 also. What are they? Here it makes a difference. More than two ways actually, but yeah, let's at least. Yeah. So can you tell me? Actually, three ways. You will first say power 7, 4 minus 4, and then power 7, 0, and then you will say 1. Okay, that is one way. What is the other way? Yeah.
Power 5
Power
plus
5
2
plus 2
0
0.
And
then 1.
exactly, you won't do the power 7 0 step in the second this thing. You see? So power 5 plus 2, 4 minus 4. If you do the 5 plus 2 first, then it will become power 7, 4 minus 4. 4 minus 4 becomes 0, and then you will get 1. In the other method, you will never even have to evaluate this, because as long as the second argument is 0, you don't care what the first argument is. And extending this further, here is the question. What would power 3 div 0, 0 return? If I say 3 div 0, you cannot divide any number by 0 and you will get an error. So if I go here to GHCA and say 3 div 0, okay, it gives an exception divide by 0. What if I give power 3 div 0, 0? If I give power 3 div 0, 1, I'll get an error. But if I give power 3 div 0, 0, what do you think will happen?
1.
Why?
Because it does not care what is the first value. I mean, after saying 0.
Yes, this is very, very important. Is everybody clear on this? If the moment it matches the second argument to be 0, it does not care what the first argument is, because when do you need to evaluate the first argument? Only when it is needed. Look at the points where we evaluated the first argument. Any argument. So you have a star. To perform a star, both sides need to be numbers. Okay, that is what forces you to evaluate one of the arguments of the star. But if the second argument is 0, you are not even going to invoke anything with star in it. So therefore, automatically you will get 1. So is this point clear to everyone? The fact that you can have undefined expressions, but it will still, the overall expression will evaluate. To make it clearer, so this particular thing about how Haskell evaluates expressions is called lazy evaluation. Meaning,
I have a question.
yes, please. Yes.
In the pattern matching for x, which is any number, I mean, it will know that some 3 div 0 is an integer without evaluating.
Because the type matches. That's all it needs. 3 div 0, you don't need to evaluate. If at all it has a result, it will have, because div is of type int arrow, int. 3 is an int, 0 is an int. That's all it cares. You're saying that any integer will match. When you say any integer will match, you don't mean any number like 0, 1, 2, 3. All you're saying is any expression of type int will match this.
Okay.
Yeah, any expression of type int will match this. So in general, when you apply a function, in general, a Haskell expression will be of this form fe. In fact, even this is a simplified picture, because that f itself need not be a function name like this. It could be the result of an expression. Okay, because as we saw, when you are applying a function on 2 arguments, then what happens? You do fxy, and what you are actually doing is you are applying f to x. The result is a function, and you are applying that function to y. So the function that you are applying to y is not a simple function name, but an expression of the form f applied to x. Okay, so that is fine. But let us say that you have an expression of the form f applied to e, then f is the outermost function, e is the expression to which it is applied. For instance, let us say you have a function head of 2 colon reverse of 1 dot dot 5. Okay, so this is something that is reasonable that you might, I don't know why you would like to do this, but you're applying the function head to 2 colon reverse of 1 dot dot 5. So in this example, f is head, b is 2 colon reverse of 1 dot dot 5. What is the result of this? 2. Yes, because why do you know that the result is 2? Okay, one answer would be to say that, oh, reverse of 1 dot dot 5 is 54321. 2 colon reverse of 1 dot dot 5 is 2 54321. And head of 2 54321 is 2. That is one answer. What would be the other answer?
Reverse gives a list, so 2 is, I mean, the head is 2 directly.
Right. So because in the definition of head, you will see that you are just saying that my head of x colon xs equals x. That's all you are saying. Okay. So which means that you don't care what xs is. As long as your argument is of the form something colon something else, where that something and the something else match the appropriate types, you will return the something. This is clear. So this xs could be some complicated expression which might not even terminate. As long as it is a list, you are fine. Okay, you will just return x. So that is the point. So here, when f is a simple function name and not an expression, Haskell reduces fe using the definition of f. Okay, and the definition of head says that if the input is of the form x colon xs, xs need not be a fully formed list. Xs is just some expression whose type is list A. That's all you care about. X should be some, again is an expression of type A. You will just return that. Yes, somebody had a question.
So while evaluating power xn, like will Haskell first compare n with the 0, or like it will go through the step power xn is equal to power x and
That
like
is what
x,
I've been telling. No, it will first check whether n is 0 or not. Because if n is 0, then it need not do all this. No, x times whatever. It will immediately do 1.
yes sir. Yeah.
Yes, to answer your question, yes, it will check whether n it will try to evaluate the expression that's not. Remember, when I say n, I don't mean a single number. In general, when you call power, you will call it with some expression. So it will evaluate the expression, see what the result is, and if it is 0, it will apply the first rule. Otherwise, it will apply the second rule.
So even if we like place instead of x any other expression like bool or true or false.
No. That it will reject, because then the types won't match. Okay. So yeah, of course, you cannot go here and say power true 0. Yeah, because it will say, oh, power true does not match int, it will say. Types should match, but expression need not be give you a result always.
Yes, sir.
Sir, what about power 0, 0?
Power 0, 0 is also, power 0, 0 will be 1 by our definition.
Okay, sir.
Okay, fine. So we saw.
Question.
Yes, Anand, what is the question?
Yes, sir. Suppose you specify like another base case, let's say where n is equal to 1, you just let it say x, right? In addition to, like, the base case with n is equal to 0.
Okay.
Does like the language, like the interpreter, when it checks, right? Does it like check the base cases in order which you define them, or?
Yes, it will define them in order only. Because, for instance, if you do power, yes, I understand your question. Power x. So x you want to check. This is what you want, right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, it will check them in order. So, what's the doubt you have?
So what if we make the second base case power 1x or power 1n, and then in
right. So can you increase your volume, please? I can't hear you at all.
yes, so 1 minute. So am I audible now?
Yeah, you're audible. Yes. This is a very good question. If you do power 1n, then it is forced to do some check on the first argument as well. Okay. In this case, you can't do power 3 diff because it has to evaluate the first argument also and check whether, at least it needs to check whether it matches 1. Okay, this is a very good question. Yes. So this is very good. So I'll come here, I'll reload. Variable not in scope. Oh, okay. Power 1 and equals. Okay, so reload it. So now if I say power of 3 div 0 0. Oh. Okay. No, I see the point. Because it first evaluates the second, it tries to do the first rule, okay, to see whether the first rule is what is being, to see whether the first rule is applicable. All it needs to do is evaluate the second argument. It doesn't need the first argument. So it gives you 1. But if you change the order, let us say, let's say you change the order. Okay, this is a very good question that you asked. Suppose you change the order. Yes, you see the point?
Yes, sir.
Why do you get this error? Because the first rule that needs to be fired requires you to evaluate the first argument and check it against 0. Right? And 3 div 0 cannot be checked against, even though the second argument is 0, because the first rule is based on the first argument, right? So you need to evaluate the first argument. Anybody has a question on this? This is very good. Who asked this question originally?
Sir, I did an Ishan asked about the 1n, like the power 1.
Okay, good. So yeah, good question, Ishan. So yeah, this is very good. So now, do others understand the point here that you will try? So what Haskell will try to do is it will try to see whether the first rule is applicable. For the first rule,
now we can give power 1 3 div 0. Then
yes, now it will work. Yes, now it will work. Power 1, this is very good. Power 1 3 div 0 will work. And it will give you 1. Why? Because for the first rule to fire, you don't need to evaluate the second argument. Because this, the right hand side does not use the anything at all. It just returns 1. Okay. So this is the rule. So it will try to evaluate it will try to see whether the first rule is applicable. To see whether the first rule is applicable, it will evaluate all the arguments which have to be matched against patterns. Okay. Okay. And then it will see the right hand side of the definition. If it doesn't involve any of the input variables, then it will not evaluate them at all. Okay. But here you see that it has to evaluate both x and n, because if neither the first argument is 1 nor the second argument is 0, then even though the pattern here is any arbitrary pattern, now on the right hand side, both x is being used and n minus 1 is being used. Okay. Both x and n are being used. So it has to evaluate x as well. It will first evaluate n. It will eventually evaluate x. Okay, or maybe not. So if for instance, instead of this, I gave power, instead of that, if I gave power 5 plus 2 1 plus 3, okay, it will, anytime it has to apply a star, it will first simplify the x part, and then it will come to the right hand side and do whatever simplifications. Anyway, so you can do all this. Any
This
further?
is because of left associativity of function?
Yes, because of left associativity, it will first do the left operator, etc.
Sir,
Yes,
so
please.
can you just repeat the last? I mean, like why it looks at both x and n? You said
Because look at the right hand side, the definition. You have to simplify, no? In the
Okay.
first two cases, the simplification involved just writing 1. So you don't need to know, well, you don't need to evaluate x. Whereas
Okay.
here you need to you need to do a multiplication on x as well as power xn minus 1. Multiplication can be done only if x is in its simplest form, namely a number. So you will evaluate x. And then power you have to recursively qualify. You need to reduce the right hand side part also to a number.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, so it needs to evaluate power, and for power it needs to evaluate both first and second arguments, because it needs to see whether 1 matches or n minus 1 matches. Okay.
Yes,
Okay.
sir.
Another question.
Okay, good. So let's move on.
So I can ask a question.
Yes, yes, yes.
So if we change the definition of the first line of power,
Hmm.
power 1n is equal to n. So then will 3 div 0 give an error?
Yes, it will give an error because you are going to use the 3 div 0 on the right hand side. And that has to be a number.
So I said can't return the expression.
No, it will never return the expression because ultimately when you write power in GHCI, it has to print something, and for it to print the result, it has to be a number. You see?
Okay, so but
Finally,
if
there
we
is
do
that.
another power, I
Uh,
mean, so if we do another power that takes in that output of 3 div 0 and then doesn't use it, so that it
then
doesn't
it is
get.
fine. Then it is fine. Then it won't do this. Okay. I
So
get
then
your,
power
I
1n
get
will
your
give 3
point.
div 0.
One second. What he is trying to tell is that let us do this now. Power 1 of, oh no, then no, this is a little, just give me a second, okay? I'll do the order. Okay, now you are asking power of 1 3 div 0. Okay, so let us first show you that power of, oh, there is an error first of all. Because int. Okay, let me first show you that power of 1 3 div 0 won't work. Somebody seems to have. This won't work. Okay, but I can say why am I suddenly having issues? Yes, do you see the point? So power 1 3 div 0 will not work, but power 1 3 div 0 0 will work. Yes, because ultimately, why does it need to reduce it to a number? It needs to reduce it to a number because you are calling it from GHCI. And if you write an expression in GHCI, there is an implicit print operation. Okay, and you can only print a printable thing. Okay, and you don't print expressions, you rather print values. Okay, and that is why you need to reduce it. Okay, and here in this case, you don't need it, so it is not doing any reduction.
Excuse me, sir, can you have like some sort of general type which includes the integers as well as expressions involving the integers?
No,
so that
integer is that type. It involves expressions involving integers. That
No,
is
I mean
not
without
the issue here.
evaluating.
The issue is
I-
that
I'm-
the issue is that for you to print something, you cannot print an expression. You can only print a value. That is the point here.
No, sir, I mean like including the type without evaluating, leaving them as like formal,
Yeah, that is
objects.
integer. Integer applies to everything. So integer 3, type of 3 is integer. Oh, sorry, type of 3. Let's say 3 default type of 3 is integer. Default type of sorry about the siren here. Do you hear it?
Well, not anymore, sir.
Yes, so we hear it.
That's also integer. Yeah. So the issue here is not about typing. The issue here is about what you want to print out. When do you need a value? If you need a value, you have to evaluate. Is it clear? And ultimately, you need a value here because you are writing power in GHCI and GHCI needs to print it. And it can only print a value, not an expression. That's all we are saying.
But ultimately, is there still any way to treat anything divided by 0 just as like a formal object? Like one place where it might be useful is, for example,
Divided by 0 is treated as a formal object. That is what I am telling you. No, you treat it as a formal object in lots of places. Like when you do power divided by 3 div 0 0, you are treating it as a formal object only. Otherwise, how will it return the value 0 for?
Okay, I think I understand. Thank you.
No, it is just an expression. It's only when you are forced to evaluate the expression that you will Haskell will evaluate. And one of the places where you are forced to evaluate is when you write an expression on in GHCI, because it will implicitly try to print it. And to print something, you need it to be a value, a primitive value, like a number or a boolean or a list or a this or that. That's your. Is it clear now?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Okay.
So while defining base cases, can we like define some mathematical absurdity, like we can say power 1n is equal to 5? Will it still be valid?
Yeah. So who says that your definition should be mathematically correct? They should be correct as long as Haskell is concerned. That's all. Power x0 equals 5, do it. No, nothing is stopping you.
Yes.
I
Yes.
have a doubt.
Thank you, sir.
Sir, if we want to return nothing in this 0.
No. Can you? I can't hear you at all. It's too disturbed. Can you please repeat again?
Sir, if you want to return nothing, if any error that, then how can we do that?
No, I don't. If you want to return nothing, why do you want to return nothing? I mean, are you talking about the maybe type or are you talking about something else? I don't understand.
Maybe type using return nothing if any.
No. Sir, excuse me. So who's asking this question? Sorry. Can you type it? Can you type it? I can't really hear you at all. There is so much noise out here. I'm sorry about that. But also your voice is too distorted. Can you just send a chat message if you want? And I would like to move on. Okay. So we have discussed this enough. Yes. So
Just asking, we can apply here binary exponentiation to even make it faster, right? And the power-
we are not. We are talking about learning Haskell and how Haskell evaluates. We are not talking about improving the power function. Okay. When I give you some exercise with power function and want you to do it very quickly, then you use binary exponentiation. Okay. So we are trying to illustrate something else now. Okay. So Rishabh Gupta is asking, if you want to return nothing, if any error input is given, how can we do that? I don't. Oh, you mean nothing? The maybe value nothing? I don't think you can, because the error input means that you will try to compute the error input and then it will immediately give an exception. You can't do this. Okay. But what you can do is you can, before you apply the div operator, you can check whether the second argument is 0. Okay. You can try to anticipate all errors and put in all those checks. Okay. But maybe we'll do that later, not now. Okay. Okay. I hope that answers your question somewhat. Let's move back to the slides because we've been stuck here for a long time. Okay. Okay, good. So yes, so the important point though that you need to take away from all this discussion is that Haskell uses something called lazy evaluation, or what you may call evaluation by need. Okay, you evaluate something only when you need it. Okay, the argument is not evaluated if the function definition does not force it to be evaluated. Okay, for instance, head of 2:reverse 1.5 is 2. You don't even need to go and evaluate reverse. Okay, because head definition says that head of x colon x's is x. Okay, you don't care that the x's is in general some expression which is of type list. Okay, it need not be an explicit list like this. Even here it's an expression. You see, reverse of 1.5 is not a list. It's an expression whose result is a list. Okay, and similarly 2:reverse of 1.5 is an expression whose value is a list, but it is of the form x colon x's, and you are supposed to return the x part. Okay, and your argument is evaluated only if needed. For instance, if I instead of head I ask last of 2:reverse 1.5, then you would actually have to evaluate the thing, because last, the definition of last says that last of x colon x's is actually first of all you will say last of singleton list x equals x, we will say. But to check whether I am given something of the form x colon xs, to check whether it is singleton x, what will you have to do? You will have to evaluate the second part and see if it is null or not, if it is empty list or not. So you will anyway have to evaluate it somewhat, but we will be saying last of x colon xs is last of x's. So you will actually have to look at x's and see what form it takes. Eventually you will have to evaluate all of the yes, and to put reverse of 1.5 in the form of something colon something else, you will have to evaluate it anyway. Yeah, so then that will force you to evaluate this. Okay. Okay, so here is another in GHCA, it allows you something nice called sprint. Okay, so let us say let L equals list equals 2 colon reverse. Let us say L equals reverse 1.5. Okay. If you say L, what will happen? It will print that thing. Okay. It will evaluate it and print it 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. But instead of that, let's again say L equals. If you say sprint L. Yes, this is the important thing. Do you see what it writes? It says L equals underscore. Underscore means L is something that is of type list, but I don't know what the value is. Somebody asked, is there a type that subsumes both unevaluated expressions as well as values? It is all types subsume both unevaluated expressions as well as values. Here at this point, it is telling you that L has not been evaluated yet. Okay. Now let us try this. Head of 2 colon L. That will give you 2. If I say colon sprint L, it will again say L is unevaluated. Okay, good. Let us now say last of 2 colon L. That is 1. If I now say colon sprint, no. So there is one catch. Okay, so I should define L to be reverse of 1.5 and of type int. Okay, let me define L as this. Now if I do head of, if I do a sprint of L, it has not evaluated. If I do head of 2 colon L, that will give you value 2. If I do a sprint of L, that tells you whether L has been evaluated or not. No, L need not be evaluated still. But if I do last of that, okay, and now if I do a sprint of L, you see, now L has been forced to be evaluated. Okay, so you can use this colon sprint to see how much Haskell has evaluated stuff. Okay, for instance, you can say your expression x equals uh, 5 plus 2.
So why was it unevaluated when you did not put that colon int?
I don't know. That is some Haskell thing. Or that is some GHCA thing. Okay. So when you want to test this, you have to give the precise type of the thing. That is some setting in GHCA which I don't know how to do it. So when you try to test it, you create an expression, give it a particular type, and then you can do all this. Okay. You do this, and then you say power of x to 0. 1. You do a sprint of x. Yeah, it is not yet evaluated. But when you do power of expression 5, let us say, you will get some value. And if you now do a sprint of x, it has evaluated it to be 0. Is this clear? Okay, you can use this colon sprint to get some idea about what is evaluated and what is not. Okay, so basically this is all there is to the execution model of Haskell. It will take an expression, it will use the user defined rules, it will keep on simplifying, Only thing is it reserves the right to evaluate something only when it needs it. Okay. So that is why it is called lazy evaluation. And
Okay.
lazy evaluation is very, very nice because it offers you the power to work with what are called infinite lists. Yes, somebody had a question. Yes.
Oh no, so could you just explain power x0, the last example?
Yeah. I'll do it. X is your expression, right?
Yeah.
Right. What is the rule for power x plus 0?
It
If you
gives you
are,
one.
it's you will apply the first rule, and the first rule applies 1, and it doesn't care what expression is. It will first evaluate. It will first look at the second argument, see what matches 0.
Also, x is for x, right? Like x is just element.
X is for x. That is right, but it won't need to evaluate it. See, the way it happens is that. So how does Haskell evaluate? It looks at the first rule, okay, and it looks at the arguments from left to right. As long as your argument is some variable like x, n, etc., it won't do anything. It won't evaluate the corresponding argument that you sent. If it is a pattern like this, then it will evaluate it and check whether it conforms to that pattern. You see? So it is going from left to right, and the first time when it hits a concrete pattern is when it comes to 0. So it has to evaluate the second argument. But the first argument is just some general x. So there is no need to check any pattern or whatever. So it will not evaluate expression.
Yeah, so
That is why when you do colon esperant, expression has not yet been evaluated. But when you do power x to 5, then it has to fire the second rule. And for the second rule, eventually at some point of time, you have to do a multiplication involving x. So you can't have it as an expression anymore. To do multiplication, Haskell requires that you reduce it to a number before you do multiplication.
Yeah.
Therefore, it has been now when you do this colon esperant, you will see that it actually says that the value of expression is 7.
Yeah, yes, sir.
Yes, is it clear? Okay, good that you are asking questions. Please ask questions. Yes,
Sir.
Yes.
There is exp a short form to write expression like we use L for list.
Once more.
Like for list we use L and L is equal to something, and so similarly exp is a short form for expression.
No. This is just some variable I created. You can call Shakti Johan variable 1, Shakti Johan variable 2, etc. If you can, I will find it difficult to type such long words, but you will find it okay because it's your own name. Fine. Yeah. So you can name it anything you want. Okay, expand L or some short things I used to write. Is it okay?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. So what would power of this is stuff that we have gone over already in detail, but the slides has this. The first definition ignores the value of x, therefore it won't evaluate x at all. So it doesn't even care if it's a non-terminating or erroneous expression. As long as it's of type integer, it's fine. Okay, so lazy evaluation says if all simplifications are possible. Okay, so some more facts about lazy evaluation. If all simplifications are possible, order of evaluation does not matter. You get the same answer. But some orders may terminate and others may not. Okay, this is some deep point that you don't need to realize now. But the point is, even if Haskell chooses some other order of evaluation than what you had in mind, it doesn't matter because all expressions will give the same value. Okay, the Haskell type system ensures that all expressions will give the same value. Sorry, not all expressions. All order of evaluations of the same expression will give the same value. Okay, except that sometimes some orders may terminate, some orders may not terminate. We'll come to that later. Okay. You can ignore the first two, the second point at least for now. But the point is, lazy evaluation expands arguments by need. Okay, so that's the point. Yes. Okay. So, and therefore, now you have a beautiful thing that is available to you because of lazy evaluation. You can work with what are called infinite lists. Okay. And here is first example of an infinite list. Infinite lists are nothing but just some programs. So some functions that you write. Okay, inf list. I'm calling it. It's an inf list of integers. Okay, I want to define it like this. Inf list equals inf from 0. I'm saying, and inf from itself is it takes an integer and a list and produces a list. Sorry, it takes an integer and produces a list. Okay, in from n equals n colon in from n plus 1. It's clear that this recursion will never end, right? Because if you call in from n, you will put n and then do call in from n plus 1. That will put n plus 1, then you say colon and then you call in from n plus 2. So on and so forth. So you're starting from 0, you will get 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 and forever. Okay. Yes. So starting from 0, if you say inflist, you will get 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Forever. Okay. But now that is fine. You have created an infinite list. You can actually, this is the nice thing. Okay. The nice thing about Haskell's laziness is that you can have an infinite object, but you can display partially the results at least. Okay. How do you know that inflist will give you 0, 1, 2, 3, 4? You can try to print it. But you might now ask, oh, you say that inflist is an infinite list. How does Haskell start to print it? Because you need to have a value before printing it. Okay. And that's an infinite list. So there is never any point of time when the value is completed. So how will GHCI print it?
It will show dots at the end, like in the list.
It will?
2 or 3 dots at the end of.
No, you don't put 2 or 3 dots. It will actually print out the whole list. Okay, it won't do dots, etc. Dot is some syntactic sugar that we use. Dot is not part of your base language. The point is, print also is very clever. Print is also lazy. Print of a list, what will it say? Oh, if the list is empty, don't do anything. If the list is x colon xs, print x and first push x to the screen and then try to print xs. Okay, your xs may be a complex expression which needs to be evaluated. Okay, wait. All you need to do is evaluate your list to the point where it is of the form x colon xs. Okay, then you will immediately push x to the screen and then you will recursively make a call. Okay, so as and when values are available in a list, it will be printed. Okay, so you don't even need to say print. If you just say reload, I have done. If you just say inf list, see, it's printed.
Sir?
Yes. One
Sir,
second. Yes, ask me, please.
Sir, will inflist means create a problem if we change the type from integer to int?
No, it won't create a problem. What will happen is after some point it will wrap around. Okay. So here, for instance, let x equals okay, x is this value. What will happen if I do x plus 1? Yeah, it wraps around, you see. Do you see the point?
Oh, okay. Yes, sir. Okay.
Yeah, so so if you want accurate results, you want to do integer arrow integer. This list will go to the positive thing and then it will immediately go to the negative. It's like circle around. Think of the negative integers written and then the positive integers, and once you go to the max positive integer, you will go back to the least negative integer. Yes.
White got interrupted the previous list.
Oh, I interrupted it because otherwise it will keep on going. I can't complete the lecture. Do we want to just let it run and sit down? Who asked this question? Why it got interrupted?
Shakti Jawan.
Shakti Jawan, yes. So please send me your computer. I will let it run on that forever without interrupting. Actually, it won't run forever. After a while, your computer will run out of resources. So at that point, you will have to stop. Okay. Memory.
What's the use of having a?
Very good question. What is the use of an infinite list? Very good question. Very nice question. Okay. We'll come to that. So, right. So let me ask you something. You have this inf list. Inf list goes on forever. What about head of inf list? Will I get any result or not?
We will get a result.
And what will the result be? It will be 0. Why? Because head only says, oh, if it is of the form x colon x, return x. So it will have to evaluate inf list only up to the point where it is x colon x. Okay, immediately it will return x and it won't do inflist any further. That inf from it won't do any further. Okay. Take 100 inflist. What about this? This will also terminate.
We will get a
We'll
result.
give you 0 to 99. Okay. So now, so Shakti Johan asks me, what is the use of an infinite list? Okay. So we will see a very nice use. Okay, in this lecture itself. Okay. Yeah. So I'll ask Shakti Johan to wait for a bit. Okay, we'll see an example. Yes. So head of inflist works because head of inflist is nothing but head of inf from 0. And then if you reduce this, it is nothing but 0 colon inf from 0 plus 1. But it doesn't care about this expression. Why? The overall expression is 0 colon something, so it will just return 0. Similarly, take 2 of inflist is take 2 of inf from 0, which is now take 2 says that it is take 2 of x colon x's is x colon take 1 of x's. So take 2 of 0 colon inf from 0 plus 1, but that is 0 colon take 1 of inf from of 0 plus 1. Now it has to simplify 0 plus 1 to 1. Then take 1 of that is nothing but 1 colon inf from of 1 plus 1, which is inf from of, I have a, 1 plus 1, that's right. But then take 1 is nothing but 0 colon 1 colon take 0 of something, at which point you don't care about what this is. Okay. So you just return 0 colon 1 colon empty list, because take 0 of anything is empty list. Okay. Is this example clear? Shakti, Srimati,
Yes, sir.
you ask for clarification.
Yes,
Yeah, I'm just asking. Okay, great. So now you have infinite lists, the power of infinite lists available to you. So Haskell actually offers you this, extends the range notation to infinite lists. You can do m dot dot, which means m plus 1, m plus 2 dot 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 forever. Okay, you can do m plus d dot dot, which means m plus d, m plus 2d, etc. etc. Actually, using infinite lists often simplifies programs, and I'll show. Shakti asked this. I'll show how. Okay, we'll show how by actually I shouldn't have done this. Yes. Some list order. So look at this. Okay, generating primes. Okay, I want to generate the first 100 primes. Okay, how would you do it? You will check whether a number is a prime and then check whether the next number is a prime. What is the usual algorithm? Can somebody give me some rough algorithm for generating the first 100 primes?
Start with a number and then check if it's prime.
Yeah, so look at a number and check if it is prime, but you need to know how far to look at. Okay, so here is a naive attempt. Okay, gen primes.
Though the SIG methods is way better.
One second, gen primes int arrow integer arrow int arrow list of integers. Okay, so n remembers how many more primes to generate. 0 tells you what is the next number to check. Okay, not 0. Let us start with 2. Okay, where go 0. If there are no more primes to check, I'll return empty list. Whereas if any other number, and if you are starting with x, then you will say if is prime x, then x colon go n minus 1 x plus 1. Yeah, you have to generate n minus 1 more primes starting from the number x plus 1. Okay. Else,
Sir, we already have n in the above expression, so it will match that. I think we should use it.
it doesn't match. It doesn't matter. It will not put it. If you are worried about that, you can do. Actually, I'll redo the.
Can we do list comprehension like?
No, one minute, please. I'm just trying to show you something. If this prime x, then x colon go off. So you try to generate n minus 1 primes starting from x plus 1. Else you try to generate n primes starting from x plus 1, because current thing is not a prime. Okay, this is a general thing that you would write, and then you will have to also say where you have to give definition of is prime. Is prime x equals, I don't know, set of all n such that n comes from 1 dot dot x and x mod n equals 0. Equals 1x. Okay, so or you can just say 2 dot dot x and then say. Yes, this is what. Yes.
It would be just to check up till root n, and then if anything is found, then break.
But I mean, fine, you can do all those, but I'm telling you what the general logic is. Okay, the general logic is this. Okay, and now you can say gen primes 100. Let's say. 10, let us say, first to see if it works. See, we not even saved it. Okay, good. 2, 3, 5, 7, 11, 13, 17, 19, 23. Okay, so this is one way of going about it, but you can see that the program is complicated. Okay, instead, here is a beautiful way of generating however many primes you want. Okay, n primes, let me call it. Meaning I want to generate n primes. I want to define primes, but what is primes?
List of infinite prime numbers.
Yes, not list of infinite prime numbers, the infinite number, the infinite list of all prime numbers. Okay, so say that. Okay, take works with this primes. So I have to define primes. And primes is being defined here. Okay, we use the method of Eratosthenes sieve, as it is called. You might have seen it in high school. What it says is that the first number is a prime. So you will start with 2. 2 is a prime. And then what you do is, so set 2 aside, call it a prime. And then among the remaining elements, eliminate all multiples of 2. Okay, because if it's a multiple of 2, it's not a prime, right? So eliminate all multiples of 2. Then you will be left with one list. This list will be 3, 5, 7, 9, etc. etc. What do you do with this list? 3 is a prime. Eliminate everything that is a multiple of 3. Okay, so you see that this whole process is infinite. First, you have to set aside 2 and then eliminate every multiple of 2. Then you have to, in the resulting list, you will have to take out the head, eliminate all multiples of 3. It looks like some huge infinite process which you can't even hope to finish. But at least the definition is simple, right? You want to sieve on the list 2 dot dot. and sieving a list whose set is P and the rest of the list is X is nothing but set aside P. What is the time? I think I am. Okay. You set aside P as a prime, and then what you do is you apply the sieve method on the rest of the list after eliminating everything that is only retaining those things that are not a multiple of P. Okay, X mod P is not equal to 0 means you are retaining those things that are not a multiple of P. Okay, and on that list you apply the sieve method again. Okay, this is the thing. So let me install this program in this thing where primes equals sieve2 dot dot sieve of P colon x's is nothing but P colon sieve of.
So sorry, due to less evaluation, if we want to print
let me finish this. And can you who asked this question?
Bijan
Rai. Can you so I need to concentrate because your voice is a little disturbed. Can you tell me again?
Yeah, for due to less evaluation, if you want to print primes till 0 to 50, then the number of multiples of 2 will be eliminated will be till 50, right? Due to evaluation, and due to multiple of 3 will be till 48. So something like that. We are declaring an infinite list, but
yes, you are declaring an infinite list, but we'll see. One second. Is at least why is it showing an error? Okay.
So you didn't write where?
No, I didn't. I don't need to write where because this where subsumes both these wheres. Because this primes itself is defined under a where. Okay. So what I should do is I should define primes at the highest level. Then I do that. Okay. Great. Okay, so let's try this. We said gen primes 100 and we got a result. Let's do n primes 100. Yes, we got the same result and much quicker also, even though it involved infinite lists. Right? So this is Shakti Chauhan, you asked what is the use of infinite list? Do you agree that the second program is much cleaner than the first program?
Yes, sir.
Though of course it is conceptually a little more difficult and you need to figure out some things about infinite list. Let us look at how the computation proceeds. It is very instructive. So the nth prime is primes whatever bang n minus 1, but you can also look at the first n primes by saying take n primes. Actually, here is an example of how the computation will proceed. Primes will simplify to sieve 2 colon colon, but sieve 2 colon colon is 2 colon. You have to write an expression. You have to write sieve of whatever the list is. I mean, you have to say x where x comes from 3 dot dot. Why do you write 3 dot dot? Because I have written 2 dot dot here. 2 dot dot is nothing but 2 colon 3 dot dot. The 2 you have pulled out here. So recall that if you have p colon x's, then it is p colon whatever. Here you have to use x's. Okay. So you pull out the p here to the output, and then you do some modification to x's. That's what you're doing here. 2 dot dot is nothing but 2 colon 3 dot dot. So you pull out the 2 here, and in 3 dot dot you want to check. You want to do the sub list where you want to eliminate everything that is divided by 2. Okay, and you retain the rest, and then you have to apply sieve on this. Oh, that's a recursive call. But the recursive call needs what? It only needs your input expression to be of the form x colon x's. This is the real beauty of lazy evaluation. So it will simplify this whole thing. Technically, that's an infinite list, but it will simplify it only as far as it becomes of the form 3 colon dot dot. 3 colon x's. Okay. But now let's look at this. It will take x from 3, 3 dot dot. So it will first consider 3. It will check whether 3 mod 2 is not equal to 0. It is not equal to 0. So the overall list is 3 colon all x's from 4 dot dot. Okay, because 3 dot dot is nothing but 3 colon 4 dot dot. So it has taken out 3. 3 passes the test. So it will put 3 here. CO of 3 colon all x from 4 dot dot such that x mod 2 is not equal to 0. Okay, let us keep that expression. But now sieve of p colon x's is nothing but p colon sieve of something you have to do. So 3 colon. So you are taking 3 here and putting it outside. Now you want to apply sieve on this whole result. Sort of. You want to apply sieve on this is your x's. So see, this whole expression is your x's now. Okay, this is your p. You have put p outside and you have to apply sieve of y such that y belongs to this list. This whole expression is the list. Okay, such that y mod 3 is not equal to 0. So now you see, you have an internal list where you are filtering out all the multiples of, you are throwing out all the multiples of 2, and then you have next level where you are throwing out all multiples of 3. Okay, and now again you need to determine this list only as far as the divisibility tests are passed. So you will first look at okay, you will take y where you will first look at this x where x comes from 4 dot dot this thing. Oh, but 4 mod 2 is actually equal to 0. So you'll throw out 4, and that will actually simplify to this x where x comes from 5 dot dot such that x mod 2 is not equal to 0. So 5 will survive. So you'll say y such that y comes from 5 colon something x where x comes from whatever 6. This whole thing is simplified to this. Okay, this expression has been simplified to this expression. Okay, you've taken the 5 out, and then I want to check whether y mod 3 is not equal to 0 for this. So for that 5 you will check whether y mod 3 is not equal to 0. It is not equal to 0. So you will put 5 here. Okay, and again so you have an expression of the form sieve of p colon some expression that gives you a list, and this expression is now 2 levels nested. Okay, even though it will give out a single list. So what will you do? You will add another nesting. So you will put out 5 and say take all things such that z comes from this complicated list, which you will evaluate step by step such that z mod 5 is not equal to 0. Okay, and then it will go on like this. So this is a real beautiful computation. So do you have any questions about, do you understand how this works? You can go back and look at the slides again. So I have posted the slides already, and that will help you appreciate this more. But do you have any questions now on this? I've traced the execution. Is it clear?
Sir, I get that 4 dot dot is equivalent to 5 dot dot here because 4 is not like it shouldn't be part of that list anyways, but I didn't fully catch what exactly Haskell is doing in between those two. So could you repeat that, sir?
4 dot dot is 4 colon 5 dot dot. Yeah, and then and Haskell will try to check if 4 mod 2 is not equal to 0. 4 mod 2 is equal to 0, so it will just skip because it is trying to test this condition using list comprehension. It will have to skip those values that fail the condition.
Okay, sir. Right.
Yeah, that is why it becomes just 5 dot dot. Whereas if it passes the condition, in this case, you see, it passes the condition. 5 mod 2 is not equal to 0. So the result is 5 colon x such that x comes from 6 dot dot. And then you do this.
Okay, sir. And it's testing 4 because it needs to extract the head now.
Exactly. It needs to extract the head. So it is testing 4. If 4 fails, it will go and test 5. 5 also fails. Eventually, you will see that if you have stacked up enough primes in your this thing, you want to test against every one of them. Eventually, you will see that, yeah, so at every stage, it will check. Okay. Yes. Now, when it, after 6 is divisible by 2, but let us say you go to 7, 8, 9. Okay. 9 will pass the first list and come out of this y. Okay. But then after 5, the next thing is 7. But after that is 9. 9 shouldn't come. The point is that 9 will pass the first list, this test. You will send it out, but it will fail this test.
Yeah, right.
Right? So that way is how it will happen. Okay. So you can imagine that if you have something like 25, let us say, it will pass the tests for 2 and 3, but it will fail the test for 5.
Right. Yes, sir. Yeah, I think I got it, sir. Yeah, thank you.
Okay.
So if we ask for 500 primes, then like will this sieve operation stop after extracting first 500 primes?
Yes.
Or
Yeah. So that's what now. First, how many primes you want? N primes was that now? I showed you that. N primes is take 100 primes. N primes 100 is take 100 primes. It is just doing this and it's stopping up.
Excuse me, sir.
Yes.
You can extract the first 1000 primes also.
Sir, in this,
Yes.
sir,
Yes,
can
sir.
you go a little above in GHCI?
What did you want? N primes 1000, Gen primes, N primes 100.
Yes, sir.
I can go a little above, but yeah, now the screen is clean. Yeah, now ask me.
N primes 100, sir. The storage, I mean, bytes of this is less than what you did for the last time. Why is it so?
That is because this extra. Oh, you mean this is better than Gen primes? You're asking. That is because
Yes,
Gen
sir.
primes is more. This is more efficient somehow because of the laziness and because Haskell does things only when it needs it. It makes it more efficient. Even though there are some research papers which say that this is not the true sieve Eratosthenes and so on. This is beautiful. Yes. So if you do the naive approach will take more time. I don't know why. You will have to sit and check why it does more computation. Oh, now it's better. But even then, it uses more bytes.
Yes, sir. That's
Yeah,
why
I don't
more
know.
bytes?
Yeah, because intermediate values it had to create lists and check for this, etc. I don't know.
Sir, even in N primes 100,
You know,
like
it would have to do it, but I don't know. I'm saying you have to somehow do a much closer analysis. I haven't explored it enough. Yes.
Okay, sir.
And so one thing I wanted to tell you, if you go to the Haskell homepage, yes. Okay. So Haskell homepage itself proudly proclaims this as the, as a, what, I don't know what you call it, Christ jewel, let us say, of Haskell. Okay. The prime achievement of Haskell is to do this 2-line thing to generate all primes. How much beautiful is this? In other languages, you have to do so much work to extract the first 100 primes. Whereas here, you just extract, list out all primes and then take the first 100 elements of that list. Yes. Okay. So let me just cover some other stuff now before actually closing. Yes. Now we'll go to another important aspect. So now we have done some infinite lists. We will do some exercises and examples with infinite lists, and you will get comfortable with it. Okay. And let's see. Here is another aspect which is very important, which is what is called higher order functions. Okay. So most functions produce a function as a result because every function with multiple arguments processes the first argument returns a function, which processes the second argument returns a function, and so on and so forth. But the nice thing is that you can also pass functions as arguments. Okay, not only do you get functions as results, you can also pass functions as arguments. And here is the simplest kind of function that you can pass as argument. The function which we will define called apply. Okay, apply takes one function and one value. And what is its result? It applies the function on the value. Okay, apply has two arguments: f, which is a function, x, which is a value whose type matches the input type of f. Okay, and then the result is f applied to x. Okay, so nothing could be. I mean, it's a sort of a redundant function, but you see that you can do this. Okay, but the point is, what is its type? Any generic function will have type a arrow b because it takes an argument and it produces a result. And the second argument x is something that you apply f to, so it has to have the same type as the input type of f. So it has type a. Okay, and output type apply fx when you output f when you apply when you pass the arguments f and x to apply, the result is f applied to x. So therefore, the result will be the result type of f. Okay, so this is the point. So ultimately, the type is a arrow b, which is the type of f, arrow a, which is the argument, second argument, which also matches the input type of a, and you produce an output which is the same as the output type of f. Okay, because you are applying f to x, right? So a arrow b arrow a arrow b. Okay, that's all it does. Okay, and this is a pretty useless function, you might think. It is the same as the built-in function $. We have used $ quite often. $, is not some syntactic hack. It is just a function, and it is precisely this function apply. And the value of this $ thing is that if you say you can avoid parenthesization by using $. Okay, so instead of saying f of some complicated expression within parentheses, you say f $ and the complicated expression on the right. It will automatically take the thing on the right to be one whole expression and an argument to be passed to the function given on the left. Okay, so that is the use of this $. And this is a sort of a degenerate higher order function, if you will. It doesn't do much.
So,
Yes, Srimati asked.
you explain the $ thing that I didn't understand.
Yeah, it is the same $. Except I put parenthesis here because parenthesis means that you can apply you can use the $ first and then give the two arguments. Okay.
You said something about degenerate.
Not degenerate. What I meant was that it's a very simple, it's a very trivial higher order function. Okay. Okay, there is nothing degenerate about it. Sorry. I was trying to use a precise mathematical language, which is not correct. Okay, yes.
So the $ operator is it should be right associative, right?
We can check now. I think it will be. Yes, it is right associative. Okay, and its type is A arrow B arrow A arrow B. Yeah, see this? Okay, so how much time do I have? I've already, I'll use up 5 more minutes. I'm sorry for that. And yes, so let's look at this. I'll introduce this and we'll stop with this. Okay, so these are functions that we already saw. Okay, these are all functions that we have seen already. Capitalize. Okay, what capitalize does is to change every letter in the string to uppercase. Okay, so capitalize empty string is empty string. Capitalize C:C is 2 upper C followed by capitalize C. Okay. Similarly, square list. You are given a list of integers. You want to compute the square of every number in the list. Okay. Square list of empty list is empty list. Square list of x:x is x squared followed by square list of x. Okay. Is this clear? What is the common pattern between these two? You have a particular function. In this case, 2 upper. In the first case. In the second case, it is squaring. Okay. You have a particular unary function which you want to apply to every element in the list. Okay. So essentially, you don't need to write a complicated recursion like this, because recursion is like programming at a very primitive level. You can write recursions. It is nice, but when you have a large program and you have a recursion in between, it might not reveal to you what precisely it is doing unless you read the code carefully. Okay. But this is a common enough pattern, and you can say that this, and one way to express this same pattern is to use the so-called function map. Okay, map just nothing means it's a function. What is a map? Map will change every element in the domain to something in the range, right? So that is what you mean by map. So map in this case takes a list and changes every element in the list to whatever you will get after applying that. Okay, so map f of x0 x1 ... till xk should be f applied to x0, f applied to x1 ... f applied to xk. Okay. Okay. So are there any questions about this? Is it clear? Yes. Is it clear?
Yes.
Is it clear at least
Yes,
that these two functions have the same pattern? Right? And the whole thing about Haskell is that when you have the same pattern, you will abstract it out. And map is the abstraction of this. So in general, you can define map like this. So for instance, map of +3 applied to 268 will be 5, 9, 11, because you are adding 3 to every number in the list. Map of *2 applied to 268 is 4, 12, 16. Map of raised to the power 2 applied to 1, 2, 3, 4 is 1, 4, 9, 16. Yes, you can use this instead of square list. Okay, and this map is built in. Okay. And right, similarly, if you're given a list of lists, you want to sum the lengths of the inner lists. Okay. So some length of empty list of lists is 0. Some length of x colon x's, remembering that the first x itself is a list, is length x plus some length of x's. And this you can do by saying you first map length on L. Okay. L is a list of lists. If you map length on that list, you will get a list of numbers. Okay. Where each number is the length of the corresponding list. And then you apply sum on this. Okay, sum applied to map length of it. Okay, so using map, you can simplify programs considerably without writing explicit recursion. You can do this, and at a glance, it will be clear what is happening. Okay,
Sir, but the first function that the map takes as input, that has to be inbuilt, right?
That has to be unary, yes. Or it can be binary, but then it will take.
No, sir, I was asking whether
is unary. In Haskell, every function is unary, right?
No, sir, I was asking whether it has to be inbuilt or not.
No, it need not be inbuilt. It can be your own function. I'm coming to that in a minute.
Okay.
So, right. So, map, in fact, map, there is nothing mysterious about map. Map can be defined in Haskell using basic recursion. Map f, where f is any function, on empty list is nothing but empty list. Map f on x colon x's is what? Simple. F applied to x, followed by map f on x's. That's all. Right? So, you can use it on your own thing. So, the type of map is, the first thing is a function a arrow b. The second argument is a list A, and the result list will be a list of type B because you applied F on every element of the list of the input list. Okay. For instance, here you can define your own. Yes. Let's go back here. Yes. So how do you write how do you write capitalize now? So who asked the question whether it has to be inbuilt? Can you use map to write capitalize?
Yes, sir.
How would you write it?
Sir, map of capitalize and the input.
No. Hey, don't write map. What is capital? Express capitalize in terms of map.
Sir, so I have defined capitalize, right? In the way.
You have defined capitalize. I'm asking you to give you, I'm asking you to not give me this definition, but give me an equivalent definition involving map.
Okay, sir.
Like I said, square list is nothing but map of power to 2. Okay, that is what here. So this expression, map raised to power 2 is square list.
So should we just map of capitalize?
Yes, tell me please, Nilabja. Sorry.
Sir, I mean, I was thinking it should be map of capitalize and the string.
I know. No.
Map of 2 upper.
Exactly. Capitalize equals map of 2 upper. Yes, you are mapping 2 upper to every element of the list.
Okay, sir. Okay, sir.
Yeah, right. So you can be built-in functions also. Okay, we'll go over these two things. These are important. Map and filter are important. We'll go over these two in the next class also. Okay, don't worry. I'll just flash these to you, show you that there are these two patterns, and I'll stop with that. Okay. So filter is another pattern. For instance, if you want to extract all the even numbers in a list, you'll say all evens of empty list is empty list. All evens of x colon x's. If x is even, then it is x followed by all evens x's. Otherwise, it is all evens x's. Okay, you don't you eliminated. You just go to next. Okay, and this abstract pattern is called filter. Okay, filter of p. P is some predicate that you apply on the values of type A. Filter p empty list is empty list. Filter p of x colon x's is nothing but, in the case where px is true, then it is you include x in the output list. X colon filter px's. Otherwise, you do not include x in the output list. You just say filter px's. Okay, and armed with this, you can express all evens as filter even. That's all. You don't need to write this explicit question. Yes, this is a common pattern. So, given a list, you can either map a function to every element of the list, or you can pick out a sublist by eliminating certain elements. Okay, and you can combine map and filter, and actually you can combine map and filter and get your list comprehension. Okay, we'll look at more map and filter and how do you combine map and filter to get list comprehension and further topics in the next class. Okay, you have any questions now about whatever we have done till now?
Sir, can you take that primes example where we see Eratosthenes?
Yes, yes. You want me to go to the?
Yes.
You want me to go to the code? Yes.
No, not the code, sir. The computation.
Ah, right. I will show you.
So I don't understand how 3 got out.
Ah, okay. Good. 3
Yeah.
gets out of the first thing, but it fails in the second. See here, 2 : sieve of x, where x is from 3, x mod 2 is not equal to 0. So 3 mod 2 is not equal to 0, so 3 gets out.
Sir, so in our definition,
yeah, in our definition, you have sieve of p : x is p : the moment you have a head, you pick it out and put it in your prime space.
okay, if it satisfies all conditions, it simply just goes out.
Yes, if it satisfies the outermost, if it satisfies all the condition in your,
yeah,
if it satisfies this condition, if it
step by step
comes out of this, yeah, it will go out. Yes.
Oh, okay, sir.
Yeah, but 5, you remember, it has to satisfy, it has to pass through the first list and it has to pass through the second list also.
Okay, sir.
Yeah? Okay. Anyone else? Okay,
Sir,
so I have to give you another assignment. I'll give it to you before tomorrow. Yeah, so that you also have time to learn more things. Okay. Yes, Srimati, you have a question?
So could you go to the filters slide?
Yes. I'll do filter and map in with more patience in the next class. I'll take some. Yes. This.
No, sir, I just want to see it on.
Yeah, sure. Please. This is also uploaded already, so you can see that there also, but you can see it now here. Yes.
So this can only act on functions which take like from A to bool.
Yes. Good point. That is why the general type itself like this. A arrow.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So these are 2 natural patterns. Okay, and whenever you see some natural pattern like this, the point is to be more and more abstract so that you don't do too many mundane operations. So you try to solve problems rather than try to spend time expressing your solutions in low-level code. Okay, that is really the aim of any program, and Haskell really achieves it to a very high degree. Okay.
Sir.
Yes.
Could you please go to GH7?
Yes. Okay.
So while doing n primes, we wrote take n primes. So for that we need the list of primes, and the first Haskell will find out the infinite list of primes now.
No, it will not. That is what I've been talking about. No, to take. So it will try to do take n of the expression. That is where it will start. It won't do primes.
What is the list primes?
It will primes is right now an expression. All it cares about is, okay, I have an expression. Take. Remember what is take? Take of n colon take n of x colon x is x colon take n x's. N minus 1 x's, right? So it will
pass through the
it will try to bring this expression to the form x colon x's. That is all it will do. It won't generate the whole list.
Yes, sir. Yeah.
Okay, it needs to bring it down to the form x colon x's, where the x's need not be a list. X's is an expression. It will evaluate it. It will evaluate it later. It doesn't need to worry about it.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir.
Okay, great. Okay.
Sir, can I say something? Will you confirm whether it's correct or not, sir?
Yes, sure. Yes.
Sir, so okay, sir. In Haskell, sir, first we define a function, and then we define it according to some pattern matching or something, and then we will give it an input, and then it will match it according to the pattern that we have given the input, and then it will start simplifying the expression.
Right.
Okay, and so at each step, it won't do all the steps. It will do only the steps that
are necessary to do the simplification.
Okay.
It will evaluate only those arguments that are for which you have specified some pattern. Okay, so that it has to match the patterns, and it will evaluate those arguments which are used on the right hand side. Because
it will evaluate.
Even there, it will only evaluate those where the evaluation is forced. Like if you have it on the right hand side and it is just X or whatever, it won't evaluate it. But if it is X star, then the star requires it to be a number, so it will evaluate.
Okay, sir. And then it will keep on evaluating it till it reaches the definition of the
Till it has reached a point where it cannot apply anymore.
Okay, sir. Base case. Okay. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, it either base case, yeah, it will reach a base case or it will reach a primitive expression like a number, okay, or or some such. Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, fine then. Yeah. So have a nice evening. So see you on Thursday with more stuff. I'll definitely try to post an assignment so that you have more practice. We have done some 4 or 5 classes with lists, so I'll give you enough exercises with this. I hope you will all find it interesting. So that is the main point, which is to enjoy and also learn. Okay. And I'll also soon give you feedback about your first assignment submissions. Okay. Good. Okay. So meet you on Thursday. Okay. Bye bye.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah,
Thank you, sir.
Yes.
Thank you, sir.
Yes. Stop sharing.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Just a question of
Yeah, it's fine.